Welcome to episode 2 of the Warmup, the show where we get you warmed up for the high school football week. Today, we'll be previewing the biggest games around the Metroplex, seeing who's in line for our MVP, and even hear from our own Pat Donor. Now, to get us started, this weekend we have some big games coming to you from the house that Doak built on the Texas State Fairgrounds. From the Cotton Bowl, we're kicking off with Saxe versus Trinity Saturday afternoon. The Mustangs' offense sputtered a little bit last week in a loss to Coppell, but their defense did not. Saxe prides themselves on causing turnovers, and they got 2 against Coppell last week. They will try to do the same against Trinity. As for the Trojans, they're going to do what they do best, run the ball. Despite having their top running backs graduate, Trinity put up close to 300 yards on the ground last week against Waco Midway. The X factor will be how each team handles the heat. A 1:30 kickoff means extreme heat, which may play into Trinity's hands as they will pound the ball behind that big offensive line and try to wear out the Saxe D. Also at the Cotton Bowl, Denton Guyer will face Cedar Hill Friday night. Guyer, coming off a thorough butt kicking at the hands of Aledo, will hope its sophomore quarterback Eli Stowers rebounds from a horrible night. On the other hand, Cedar Hill stomped a solid John Tyler team by 50 points. Carlos Lynn has a healthy, hungry squad who looks like they're ready to rise to the top again. If Guyer head coach John Walsh can't get the Wildcats refocused, it could be a long night for Guyer. One other game to preview from the 4A level. Kennedale takes on Midlothian Heritage Friday night, and what should be a barn burner, at least if their last matchup is any indication. They met in a regional final last year, with Kennedale edging Heritage 45-43 in a wild game. We know the Wildcats will keep the ball on the ground behind DJ Curvin, while the Jaguars will run an up-tempo offense behind quarterback Landon Ledbetter. This one should go down to the last possession. This week on Inside High School Sports, we give out our first MVP bobblehead of the year. Here's a look at 3 nominees for this week's award. Chandler Morris of Highland Park had an amazing debut as the Scots signal caller last week against Rockwall. Not only did he throw for 338 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he also ran for 105 yards and 4 more touchdowns. Morris had to lead the Scots back in the 3rd quarter to avoid a rare loss at home. Candidate number 2 is Bo Hogaboom of Argyle. The quarterback threw for 302 yards and 3 touchdowns as the Eagles exacted revenge on Stephenville, who beat them in last year's playoffs. He was the master of the big play too, as he threw touchdowns of 80, 51, and 40 yards on the night. Candidate number 3 is Plano running back Kyron Cumby. Playing mostly the Wildcat position for Plano, Cumby rushed for 238 yards and 3 touchdowns. If it wasn't for a missed extra point, Cumby and the Wildcats might still be playing, as they only lost by a point to Hebron. The tailback is on the radar of several BCS colleges. With week 1 in the books, let's take a look at our top 5 rankings for 6A and 5A. In 6A, the number 1 spot goes to Allen. The defending 6A champs had no problem disposing of Mesquite Horn this week, 40-0. At number 2 is the Duncanville Panthers after their shutout win over Lancaster. Coming in at number 3 is DeSoto. The Eagles went on the road to take out Odessa Permian. Another big road winner comes in at 4. Trinity went down to Waco and took down 6A state finalist Waco Midway. And rounding out the top 5 is Cedar Hill. Are they back? Time will tell, but as for now, they're our 5th ranked team. In 5A, Highland Park showed no signs of slowing down as they took out 6A powerhouse Rockwall. Coming in at number 2 is Aledo as they shut out a 6A squad in Denton Guyer on the road. At the 3rd spot is Frisco Lone Star. They have a matchup with the Scots in week 3. Denton Ryan is our 4th ranked team after winning on the road at Mesquite Poteet. And rounding out the top 5 is Colleyville Heritage after they completely shut down offensive juggernaut North Forney. The Cotton Bowl will be host to 4 big-time matchups this weekend. We welcome in Pat Doney to break down 3 of those games and asked him to pick who he thought would win. Pat, take it away.
Hi, Ashley. I wanted to talk a little about some of my favorite games this weekend, give you some predictions for what I think is going to happen. Let's start with Waco Midway taking on Mansfield Lake Ridge. Midway's coming off a big loss. They just got blown out against Euless Trinity on this past weekend. Lake Ridge loses up in Oklahoma. I think Lake Ridge is a little more motivated, maybe a little better. Midway replacing a lot of talent on that team this year. I think Lake Ridge pulls off that win in the Cotton Bowl. That's the first of a doubleheader on Friday in the Cotton Bowl, and so the nightcap there, a game I'm really excited to watch. Denton Geyer taking on Cedar Hill. I think Carlos Lynn has Cedar Hill playing really well right now. A lot of people forget Cedar Hill played 5 quarterbacks last year. They were using their 4th string quarterback most of the year. I think Cedar Hill wins that game in impressive fashion against Denton Geyer. I'm picking Cedar Hill to win on Friday night. And then finally on Saturday, a game that I'm really excited about as well. Euless Trinity taking on Saxe. Man, what a performance by Trinity in their opener, going to Waco Midway and crushing them. I think Saxe is a good team this year, but I kind of like what we're seeing from Euless Trinity early on. I think that's a good sign for the Trojans, what they did in that first game. I think Euless Trinity wins that game against Saxe, but I think it's going to be really close. It's going to be another great week of high school football, Ashley. Let's send it back out to you.
Thanks, Pat. Be sure to catch the highlights of those games this weekend at 6:30 p.m. on Wingstop Inside High School Sports. Also, we tell you how Rockwall Heath head coach Mickey Moss spends some of his off days. I'll give you a hint. It has nothing to do with football. That's all we have for this week's episode of The Warm Up. I'm Ashley Bullington, and thank you for watching.